So first you're going to hear from Futurist Steve Brown. Steve is an accomplished speaker, author, and strategist. He has 30 years of experience in high tech, spanning research, planning, engineering, marketing, manufacturing, and management. Steve is the former futurist and chief evangelist at Intel Corporation. And he's going to talk to us about the coming wave of technology and what it means for Oregon. I'm very excited to welcome Steve to the stage now. Thank you. Good luck.
20 years from now, a giant tsunami of automation will have hit Oregon, and up to half the jobs will have been destroyed. At the same time, a whole new range of exciting new technologies is going to come to market and become new ways for Oregon to innovate, and it's an opportunity for Oregon to completely reimagine itself. What I want to talk to you about in the next 30 minutes or so is both that dark side and the light side of the automation and the new technology that is going to be coming your way in the next 20 years or so. Everybody wants to know, how do they make themselves robot-proof? How do they make their children robot-proof or their grandchildren robot-proof? The conversation we need to start today is, how do we build an Oregon that is robot-proof? The robots are coming. Automation is coming. How do we navigate that so that Oregon, on the other side of that wave, ends up stronger than it is today? Before I talk about where things are going 20 years from now, let's just remember how far we have come. I took this photograph in downtown Oregon last week. I think it illustrates just how far we have come. It's my buddy Dave up there, posing for you. In the last 20 years, and you can tell from my outrageous British accent that I'm not from around these here parts, I actually live in downtown Oregon. I live in the Pearl District. Portland has been my home for 20 years, so most of my adult life I have been here in Oregon, and I choose to make it my home. This is a wall of logos that 20 years ago, not one of these services, not one of these companies, not one of these products existed. And just look at that wall of logos. They're probably ones that are, many of those are central to the way that you live your lives or run your business in just 20 years. So as I talk you through the change that's coming in the next 20 years, I want you to be thinking in your mind about just how much change we've actually gone through in the last 20. The framework I want to use for our discussion today, first of all, I want to walk you through what are some of the big disruptors that are coming. Secondly, in this second section is where you'll need to just hang on, hold on to somebody near you if you need to, because I'm going to talk about, and I'm going to be very blunt, about the challenges that are coming. But I'm going to end up with really a conversation about what do we do about it as a state? What do we do, and what does Oregon's opportunity look like? How do we take a lot of these disruptive technologies and turn them around and use them for good? So let's start with, what are the disruptors that are coming? Now, the bigger picture is we're going to use technology to hack our reality, to change our world. Hacking being this idea of making the world a more efficient place. So we're going to hack our surroundings, including our cities, our homes, our businesses. We're going to hack our industries. I'll talk quite a bit about that. We're going to hack ourselves. You're going to see a lot of technology used to help mitigate issues that we have and make ourselves stronger and better and smarter than we are today. And finally, we're going to hack our perception of the world. And we'll touch a little bit on each of these. But all of this is happening because we've continued to build this bridge between the physical world that we all inhabit and the digital world, which is improving at an exponential pace, at the pace of Moore's Law. And we're building a bridge between these two worlds. And as we do that, we allow our physical world to be improved at the speed of Moore's Law, at the exponential rate. So we've got a whole selection of technologies that we're using to bridge these. And I don't have the time in the time that we have together today to walk you through all of those. So I want to just focus on a few. The ones that I think are the most powerful and will be the biggest disruptors for all of us. So let's just go through them one by one. How many of you have not heard about artificial intelligence by now? No hands going up. Okay. It's all over the news, and rightly so. Artificial intelligence is a technology that suddenly, while it's been on the pages of science fiction for a long time, suddenly is in the conversation. The reason for that is for this breakthrough technology called Backprop. You don't need to know what it is or how it works, but it is the technique that's used to tune a neural network, represented by these circles that are connected together, and tune that network so that as you take one input, you can get complex outputs. That's all you really need to know. Backprop is actually a process that was proposed in the mid-1980s. This is not a new technology. What's new, what happened was, back in about 2012, the computing power that was needed to make Backprop work became available. So suddenly now, we can show a computer a picture of a puppy. Every presentation, by the way, should have a picture of at least one puppy in it. Showed a picture of a puppy or a cat, and it can tell you accurately. This was an experiment that Google actually did a number of years ago. They can figure out if a picture is of a puppy or a cat. That's what Backprop is, that's all you need to know. But it has led us to be able to solve a lot of problems that, up until then, computers were not able to solve. There's a whole range of them shown on this chart here, but think about it at the very highest level. It enables computers to start to interact with us and with the physical world in a way that formerly only humans could do. So it's what enables Alexa to understand when you talk to her. It is what enables computers to see and hear and understand the world around them. It is a technology that's being used to predict a lot of things, predicting anything from energy prices to what stocks are going to do, even predicting suicide risk in people by looking at MRI scans of their brains. Content will start to be created by AI. It already is. So the realm of creativity, that's the only thing that humans can do that. Machines can't do that. That's going to start to get eaten away. Diagnosis and discovery, particularly in the medical field. If you are thinking about a career in medicine for perhaps one of your children or grandchildren, they're probably more likely to have longevity as a nurse than as a doctor, which is a shocking thing to say. One of the things that is very clear from this next wave of automation is it is not going to be blue-collar only. This is going to hit into segments of white-collar work as well. And finally, artificial intelligence, when it's encapsulated inside a machine, is an autonomous machine. It gives machines agency, the ability to act and move in the world. And you've probably seen the DAX robot roaming around outside here today. So artificial intelligence enables computers to do things they were not able to do before, and to do things that formerly were only possible by human beings. I'll give you a simple example. BlackRock, a huge investment company, financial company, they have a number of mutual funds which are managed by human beings. Of those mutual funds, since 2008, only 11% of those mutual funds have actually beaten the markets. If you just put your money in and bought the market indices. $423 billion of investment got pulled out of those types of funds in 2016 alone. As investors are starting to figure this out. They don't want to pay all these fees for something that's really not going to beat the market. As a result, you're seeing a company like BlackRock, they already, in 2016, put $30 billion under management by an algorithm, by a robotic fund manager. This is just the beginning. It's just the beginning because technology is changing and starting to actually catch up with what I talked about, that breakthrough in Backprop in 2012. If you look at the two images here, on the left-hand side is a game called Wolfenstein 3D, which I remember from days when I had luxuriant flowing hair. One of my favorite video games, you got to shoot Nazis, and who doesn't like doing that? Now, the new version of that game, Wolfenstein 2, came out just a couple of months ago. Look at the difference in the quality of the graphics in that time period, just 25 years. Now, how did that happen? It happened because Moore's law happened and transistors got smaller and chips got faster. But it also happened because we created a special set of chips called graphics processing units that were dedicated to making those graphics better. We're about to go through the same thing for artificial intelligence, neural processing units that are designed to accelerate the tasks that are associated with AI. So these accelerators are going to make AI cheaper and better, and that's just a process beginning now. I said that AI, when it goes inside a machine, gives you an autonomous machine. Now, robots have been something that for a long time were trapped in the pages of science fiction novels. But you're starting to see them in almost every industrial sector. The robots are coming. I want to give you some examples of that. This is the way that robots used to look. They were in factories making our cars for us. And you'll notice here, highlighted in a slightly orangey color, are these barriers. And the barriers were there to separate the robot zone from the human zone. Now, the reason for that is robots, until recently, have not been able to see and hear, so they were not safe to be in an environment with a human being nearby, because if a robot goes and does that and you're nearby, you end up in at least two pieces. So this is what the old robots used to look like. Let's take a look at what a new robot looks like. That is not Hollywood special effects. That is artificial intelligence at work. These robots are quite a bit more sophisticated than they have been even 5 years ago. This is that same robot practicing working in a warehouse. I'm not sure I'd want him looking after my packages yet, but this is going to get better and better. Once a robot can do that, what else can it do? Here's a robot called SAM100. SAM100 is a bricklaying robot. The average human being can lay about 500 bricks in a day. SAM100 can lay 3,000 bricks in a day. Now, SAM100 can't operate on his own. He still needs human beings to load him up with bricks and put them into the funnel so that he's a ready supply of bricks. And it still requires a human being to come up and clean up after him. Turns out SAM100 is a bit messy. But now you've got a partnership of humans and machines working together, building homes at a much more rapid and lower cost rate. This is a robot from a San Francisco company called Bossanova. It's currently in trials in Walmart and a number of other stores. It roams the aisles in these stores, and it does stock check. It checks the shelves. It uses a combination of 2D and 3D cameras to understand what is on the shelves and what's missing. Now, that's a task formerly done by human beings and took about 40% of their time. So now this robot can build a pick list for the humans and help them know, you need new cornflakes on aisle 3, you need new face moisturizer on aisle 7. This is a similar robot for retail from Brain Corp and ICE combined together. This is a janitor robot. You can see it can be ridden on by a human being to go clean up on aisle 3, but it also will navigate its way autonomously around the store and clean the floors. And it'll do that in a safe way when customers are in the store. This is a robot pharmaceutical tech that picks and measures out medication. This is a burger flipping robot. This is in trials now. I used to work very closely with some of the fast food industry when I was still working at Intel. When the $15 an hour wage discussion started, they were calling instantly saying, I need to automate, I need to completely get humans out of the burger manufacturing process. This is a sort of slightly sophisticated application. It can handle lots of different types of food preparation. This is the vision for where it's going to go next. This is an effort from a UK company to build essentially a robot chef that can cook you gourmet meals. You motion capture Wolfgang Puck or whoever, making you a fabulous meal. You then give this robot the ingredients, and it will replay and do the exact thing that Wolfgang Puck would do if he were in your home. They're saying they're going to launch this next year. This is a robot from Starship Technologies, the people behind Skype. Starship Technologies created a delivery system for the last mile delivery, for shopping, for pizzas, whatever it might be. A delivery van goes into the central neighborhood, finds a safe place to park, and then the robots are stored inside this van. The robots then scatter through the neighborhood, delivering product. They can navigate down sidewalks, past people. This is one on trial in the streets of London. It gets to your front door, it calls you. You open the front door, you type in a code, and access whatever it was that you were interested in. And these are in trials with some of these big companies today. The goal of companies like this is to deliver stuff to your front door, and that DAX robot you saw outside is in the same category here. Starship's saying they want to deliver to your front door for $1. What do you think that does to the retail sector when you can have stuff delivered to your front door for $1 in an hour? The pressure on retail is already intense. This is only going to intensify that pressure. This is an Australian robot called Ripper. Ripper is from the Sydney University, and Ripper is there to tend crops. So those of you who are involved in agricultural settings, Ripper has machine vision that enables it to see which crops are ones it needs to keep and which are weeds. So it can very easily weed a field for you. It does lots of other things too, but I just wanted to show you, this is what the breakthrough in machine vision makes possible. This is that backprop that happened in 2012, that breakthrough onwards is what's enabling robots like Ripper and others to be so successful. This is a project in the UK called the Handsfree hectare. A hectare is about 2.5 acres, but the Handsfree 2.5 acres didn't have quite the same ring to it. So the Handsfree hectare, this was an effort to sow, nurture, and then harvest an entire field of barley, 2.5 acres, without any human hand touching it. And they did it. It's not just robots in the fields, you're seeing drones in the fields too, giving farmers eyes on their fields to help them understand what is happening in the environment. Are there areas that they need to go and deal with some blight? Are there areas that need better watering, better drainage? Giving eyes on the field is a huge change, a huge transformation for farmers. Drones are not any longer just for taking cute photographs of the top of your house. Turns out they can do a lot more, like this. They're also great for surveying. They're great for a number of applications. And drones are even starting to get arms so that they can do useful things. They're not just passive in the sky, they can actually participate. This is a drone that is able to act as a lifeguard. And drones are getting very powerful. This drone is powerful enough to pull a grown man through the water. There are drones that are powerful enough to pull people out of the water to rescue them. There are even drones for dogs. You see, any presentation, you should have at least 2 dogs in your presentations. The next one is super cool. If you have drones for dogs, you can also have drones with flamethrowers on them. How cool is that? This is a drone that's used in China when there is debris on power lines. Rather than send a poor guy up a rickety ladder to try and fish it off without getting zapped, they just burn it off with a drone flamethrower. Drones come in all different sizes. This is a Harvard project. They call it the Robo-Bee. This is about the size and weight of a paperclip. Drones can be very small. They can also be very large. This is a passenger drone from a company called Volocopter. I am tracking 16 different companies that are all actively and aggressively working to develop passenger drones, also known as flying cars. There are some startups here. There's some major names here. Volocopter, which you see the picture in the background there, that is backed by Daimler. It's a 2-seater, and it has 18 different independent rotors, so it's very safe. You might ask, well, when are flying cars coming, Steve? You're the futurist, tell us. 3 years ago, I said it was going to be a very long time. I didn't call it right, because this Volocopter device was already trialed 2 months ago in Dubai. They expect to go into service within 5 years. Uber is creating their new program called Uber Elevate. They want to make it easy for you to call a volocopter or other similar device as it is to call a car today. And this is what they look like. They're typically vertical takeoff and landing. There are trials planned in Dallas, in LA, in Singapore, and Dubai through the next few years. Expect to see passenger drones here in Portland before too long. And if you can do autonomous flying cars, you can do autonomous cars that sit on the ground too. Every single major car manufacturer is racing to get their products to market, making them autonomous, making them electric at the same time. And if you're going to have an autonomous car, why not apply that to something a little bigger and have an autonomous truck? You hear about this in the press. It's a completely different thing to actually see this running on the road. This is a trial by Otto in partnership with Budweiser. They moved 2,000 cases of beer 120 miles completely autonomously. And similar to the car companies, every single truck manufacturer is racing to make their trucks autonomous. Now, why is this interesting? It's interesting because in Oregon, the #1 job is driver. It's also the #1 job in 29 other states. 1.7 million truck drivers in the US, 3.5 million or so people who rely on driving as a way to feed their families. If we make that autonomous, and we probably will, we're going to have to find something else for all those people to do. If you're going to have autonomous trucks, you can have autonomous ships. This is an autonomous ship which autonomously loads and unloads as well. Longshoremen, pay attention. It also happens to be the very first electric ship out there. This will be on trial next year in Norway, fully autonomous by 2020. So, autonomy is a big, big deal, and it's coming very fast. These devices, these products, these services are going to get better and better very, very rapidly. I'm going to switch gears now and tell you about another technology that you should be paying attention to. It's called blockchain. Blockchain is the underlying technology that sits under cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, so that's why you may have heard it mentioned. Blockchain can do a lot more than that, though. Blockchain is a database. It's a fancy new database. And it's a database that is completely decentralized, so no central authority owns that information and the stuff that you're storing. So it's a way of kind of distributing and democratizing the storing of information. And it's a way of storing that information in a way that is almost bulletproof. It is very hard to hack a blockchain. So it's military-grade encryption. It is a database that is time-stamped, and it's a great way of storing transactions and contract information. So the chain that stores this information, blocks of information, are linked together the same way you would knit stitches in a garment. So you link information together in a blockchain, hence called a blockchain. Because you're linking things together, the same way that if you make a mistake when you're knitting, you have to unpick the stitches and then go redo it and then go forward again. The same thing applies to blockchain, which makes it very hard to go back and change information that is stored down the blockchain somewhere without everybody else seeing. Because it is a distributed, decentralized tool, there are also multiple copies of all of this information. If you want to participate in the blockchain, you have to store a copy of that information on your machine. What that means is even if you could hack one blockchain and change information in it, you can't do all of the other ones, which are all being compared to see what we agree is the truth. So the best way, blockchain is a very complex technology that requires a lot of explanation, but hopefully you get the idea here. The key idea you need to know is blockchain brings trust to the internet. It is the first technology we've had that allows you to create trust between two strangers. And there are multiple different blockchains out there. What it enables is two strangers to exchange value for the first time in a way that doesn't require a centralized authority. These are the types of organizations and individuals that are currently associated with that type of work. So if you're a bank, if you're a broker, an exchange, if you're an escrow, you're in social media even, this is technology that you need to be paying attention to. Blockchain not only is going to disrupt all those types of jobs, it's also going to create opportunities to reimagine entire industry sectors. And there's lots of different applications that you can build on top of a blockchain that you could never build before. Now, if you want to know more about this, I encourage you to go do a bunch of research online to learn more about what blockchain is. There is an effort to make Oregon a center of excellence for blockchain. And I can't tell you much about it yet because it's kind of secret squirrel stuff, but it is a cross-industry, cross-functional effort to make Oregon a center of excellence with an accelerator, and it's a public-private partnership. So stay tuned for that. There's a gentleman in the room by the name of Jeff Gauss. If you track him down, let him know you're interested to participate. Final technology I want to tell you about is augmented reality. Rather than try and explain that to you, it's easier just to show you a very quick video. Augmented reality is a great way to rethink the way that we train people so that we can start to augment workers by showing them what they need to do next in real time. That's one of the things I want to mention about. The second is, in Oregon, we already have a number of augmented reality startups. Let's figure out ways to feed them. This will be the way that you interact with digital information and services in the future. Bye-bye smartphones, hello augmented reality. Let's get some of the challenges we're facing. As I mentioned in the opening, we are facing an automation tsunami. We have always had a history of change. If you look back to 1810, the majority of people in the US worked the land. Today, less than 2% of people working in the US work in the farming sector. And that's probably not a bad thing, because back in 1810, working the land was something that would end your life fairly early, and it was back-breaking, miserable work. And those people that were formerly working the land are now running daycare centers, they're making lattes at Starbucks, they're doing different things, they're designing websites. This happened because we were able to create mechanical muscles. We're now moving to an era where we're creating mechanical minds. And what that means is we have largely commoditized physical activity, we're now about to commoditize knowledge activity, which means that the value that we have as humans in the workplace is moving up into this network area, where it is your ability to connect with other people and information, and to find out how to connect those things together efficiently that matters. What it means is that there are a number of jobs that are now at high risk that were formerly just fine. On this chart here, you see that on the left side, jobs that require empathy and understanding of humans, their culture, human interaction, that are related to creativity, that require judgment, that require an understanding of human ethics, or that have a great deal of variety in them, they're still going to be relatively safe. But jobs that have a lot of repetition in them, or jobs that require brokering, trust, or jobs that just require lots of analysis. They are at risk, and you see a whole range of job titles here. What this is, and we should all perceive this, is a major reset in our thinking about the job market. McKinsey and Company, back in 2015, said 45% of jobs will be automated by 2055, plus or minus 20 years. That's a way of saying, we don't know. They updated their forecast this month. 23% of US jobs will be automated by 2030. That's 13 years from now. You're going to hear from the next speaker who will tell you what that looks like in Oregon, and it ain't pretty. And they're not alone. There are a range of other organizations that are predicting massive job losses. And the thing is, we've always created jobs and destroyed jobs, and hopefully it balances out, or we create more jobs than we destroy with new technology. The risk we have is that the speed this will happen is going to catch us so quickly, we won't have the ability to move the people from the old jobs to the new jobs and train them quickly enough. It also matters on where you are in the world. Location matters, and you'll see that it matters even here in the state of Oregon. There are debates here. OECD says this is only 9%, other organizations saying this is 50% of jobs. It comes down to tasks versus jobs. If your job is really one task, and that task can be automated, it's not looking good for you. If your job is multiple different tasks, and some of them can be automated, then you get to partner with technology. You get to keep your job and just be more efficient. So it comes down to the rate of destruction of jobs versus the creation of jobs, and also there's a labor market contraction coming. As we see the boomers retire, Gen X is a much smaller generation than the boomers. So debate there, but we certainly have a challenge, and we must not ignore it. Okay, let me get to what's our opportunity here. I've bummed you out. Have I bummed you out a little bit? A little bit? Okay. My goal was to get your attention. Let's talk about what we do about this. First step is we need to educate people on that this is an issue that we should all be paying attention to. We then need to come up with ways to adapt to this challenge. And finally, how do we embrace this? How do we make this work for Oregon, work in our favor? And I'll walk you through each of these real quick. So we need to raise awareness and start to have a conversation. That is the goal of the next this half of this conference, to have this conversation. And you're going to breakouts to start to have that dialogue. I'm a futurist. You're listening to me today. I deputize you all as futurists. Please start to force this conversation. Cocktail parties, in the workplace, wherever you can. Let's start to get people talking about this. We also need a policy debate. Some of you in this room are in exactly the position to do that. There are already plenty of tech luminaries, people who live in the future and think about this stuff, who are starting to think about what might be some solutions. Do we need taxes on robots? Do we need to talk about universal basic income? I don't know the answer to that, but we need to start having that conversation. And given that Oregon has the Oregon way, and the ability for people to really reach across the aisle and have a constructive conversation, maybe there is an opportunity for Oregon to lead here, to start to do research and experimentation on what we should be doing from a policy standpoint to deal with this challenge. And we need to work on this because the tide is already turning. In research, 58% of people say there should be limits on how many jobs a business can replace with robots. That's to me, with friends who are social scientists and anthropologists, this is the beginning of a Luddite uprising 2.0. We need to be paying attention to that. I spent quite a bit of time with some of the Oregon universities. Linda Schott's here today to help think through what the future of education might be. 65% of today's grade school kids may end up doing work that hasn't been invented yet, says Kathy Davidson, a forward thinker on education. What that means is we need to think about how do we change the curriculum, how do we change what we teach people, and how we teach them. You heard this morning, the era of one degree and one career is over. We need lifelong learning. And that means the universities need to plan to have a lifelong relationship. The schools, the community colleges, this is about a lifelong relationship with your customers. Because we need to give people robot-proof skills. We need to develop the skills that they need that differentiate the human from the robot, help those skills grow and flourish, and help them to get into these new domains. I'm a futurist. I think about what might be these new industries, these new skills that have come up. I can't predict them all, no one can. But let's start thinking about what those might be and invest in them. And let's use the same technology that will put people out of work and turn it around and use it to make education more efficient, more effective, and enable us to increase access for people. In the breakouts this afternoon, you're going to go look at healthcare. You're going to look at education. You're going to go look at transportation. I want to offer just a few quick thoughts on that. How would we reimagine healthcare? Firstly, we could start to understand why people who are healthy. To understand, so we're not just accidentally well, to use a term that a friend of mine uses. To gather longitudinal health records on people secured with blockchain so that people can understand their own health and that we can understand the population's health as a whole and act upon that. You'll hear about precision medicine, the ability to understand you as an individual based on your DNA and build a medical solution, a better medical plan for you. And finally, how could we solve the identity and billing issues that plague the healthcare industry? Blockchain probably has a role to play there. So those would be some ideas you could explore in the healthcare session this afternoon. For manufacturing, embracing the idea of Industry 4.0, which is coming out of Germany, being able to tool your entire manufacturing flow so that the physical and digital versions of your manufacturing floor work in sync, and that you're able to deliver mass-customized products, which is what consumers are going to want. And that distributed manufacturing, which I'll talk about in a second. And to rethink transportation. To start to think not just about building smart vehicles, but how do you build an infrastructure that will communicate with them and make the flow of vehicles through a city more efficient. There are investments that could be made in smart infrastructure in Oregon cities. How do you embrace electric? It's coming. How could Oregon be a leader in that area? And what's the rural plan? How do you connect communities better once you have autonomous vehicles as a tool, which allows you to access those communities and maybe provide services that were not economical before? And finally, if people are using autonomous vehicles, they're parking them less. Parking is a huge revenue source for cities. How do you rethink that revenue model? And I'm probably going to sit in the transportation session because I love it, so I'll share more thoughts on that. Final thing that I want to share on sort of what we could do about this to embrace things. How do we automate responsibly? So you're not trying to just get rid of people as quick as you can to cut your costs and compete in the market. You actually automate mindfully. What I mean by that is to look at a business process, break it down into tasks, and then say which of those tasks is best done by an algorithm, which is best done by a human, and which is best done by a robot. Because each one of those has different strengths and weaknesses. How do you build human-machine teams? And to push that mentality and promote it with businesses in Oregon. Because what we're talking about is a new type of diversity, which is not just about balances of race, gender, and outlook on life, but a new diversity that includes non-humans, and to rethink the workplace in that regard. We need to make it easier for people to participate in the economy. We've already seen a lot of platforms that have come out to enable people to generate economic activity, to participate in the economy on an as-needs basis. We've seen incubators rise up. How do we invest more in those to help people with a good idea to bring it to market? To really fuel the small business base of Oregon. How do we provide spaces to enable those businesses to flourish? And how do we democratize manufacturing? Make it easier for people to access the means of production. We're moving to an era where you will be able to, if you have a good idea, you'll be able to design a product online with help from people you've never met, Send it to a manufacturer that you've never talked to other than digitally, and have products delivered to your customers without you ever seeing them. That's a huge opportunity for Oregon to really embrace. So I know I'm over time, with some closing thoughts from a fellow Oregonian. I know I have the outrageous British accent, but I've chosen to make this my home. I've been here for over 20 years, and I've been visiting Oregon for almost 30. We have an opportunity in Oregon, together, to reimagine everything. I've given you just a little hint of some of the ways that these technologies I talked about can be used as tools to help us rethink the way we do business, the way we deliver services, the way we live our lives. We have an opportunity to reimagine healthcare completely, to reimagine agriculture, whether it's in rural communities or in cities. We have an opportunity to reimagine energy. This is algae being grown in tubes across the freeway in Paris that's then used to make energy. To reimagine education at grade level and at university level. To reimagine the way that we do construction, the way that we move people around on the ground and in the air. To reimagine entertainment and play. To reimagine the way that we shop, the way that we design products. The final thought I'll leave you with. Marc Andreessen, who co-founded Netscape, great thinker, investor in Facebook and Twitter, and really one of the fathers of the modern internet in some ways. He wrote an article in the Wall Street Journal in 2011 that said, "Software is eating the world." What he meant by that is every industrial domain is being changed as a result of advances in software. The question I've asked myself over and over is it bigger than that? Are we seeing a bigger problem here? Is all of the activity, the success of the capitalist model that we have, which I'm all for, is that leading us to a path where ultimately is capitalism, is it at risk of eating itself? Where we're so successful with automation and improving productivity that ultimately we push all of the people out of that process. And then we have no consumers who are able to buy the products that we're making anymore. Do we need to also reimagine the next revision of capitalism? What does that look like? And for the teams working on the future of the economy in Oregon, to me, that is the central question. What does capitalism 2.0 look like, or 3.0, or whatever way we want to define it? Fundamentally, we have a huge opportunity, and the people in this room are the ones best placed to reimagine Oregon. With this wave of automation that is coming, we're going to be faced with huge challenges, but also given massive amounts of opportunity. Let's grasp that together. As Oregonians, use the Oregon way, use the way that Oregon is able to be out front on a number of things. Let's reimagine Oregon for the better. Thank you for your time.